So I thank God for the opportunity to be here with all of you, and also the opportunity to share this great preparation for Lent. I'm sure that little by little we all begin to understand how important it is to enjoy the seasons of the church, and how important is to live these mysteries of our liturgy and everything God is offering to us in the church. I'm going to start with reading wherever the Spirit leads us. And I'm going to read to you from Hebrews 4:1. Therefore, let us fear while we are invited to enter the rest of God, lest any of you be left behind. We received the gospel exactly as they did, but hearing the message did them no good, because they did not share the faith of those who did listen. We are now to enter this rest because we believe, as it was said, I was angry and made a solemn vow, they will never enter my rest. That is the rest of God after He created the world. In another part it was said about the seventh day, and God rested on the seventh day from all His works. But now it is said, they will not enter my rest. We must conclude that some will enter the rest of God, and that those who first received the good news did not, because of their disobedience. Yet God again assigns the day when He says, today, and declares to David many years later, if you hear God's voice today, do not be stubborn. So I'm going to reflect during this hour about Lent and the devil. I know this word devil is not very common and popular in the church today, but I think that when we speak about Lent, we have to realize that Lent is a preparation, is a desert that we enter into reconciling with God on one end, and another end to realize what we are up to, because we have to understand the journey that we are engaged with. This journey of faith, journey of life with God, is a journey that challenges us to understand that there is a need for a constant, a permanent, an ongoing growth, a spiritual growth. So Lent is a moment that God gives us in the church to understand where we are at. To realize if we are actually pilgrims, if we are moving on, if we are walking, journeying towards the house of God, or if we are stuck on earth. And this is a very important challenge. Lent is all about that, because we can approach Lent in a philosophical way and then become very intelligent about it and say, well, I'm doing my best, and I understand my religion, and the doctrine that I have acquired through my religion teaches me about the mercy and compassion of God, and God knows me. That is a very good philosophy, very practical, but it's not good, really spiritually speaking, because He won't let you grow, because He will set you up in a way that you're comfortable with what you are, so you're not moving on into perfection. So, and God wants more from us. He doesn't want us to get stuck where we are, thinking we are good just because we probably sort of practice the faith in a way we think is good. So that's not enough. So that's why Lent is an opportunity for us to really regroup. It's like God calls His army into headquarters and prepare them for the next battle. That's what it is. So we are here called to do that. We are soldiers of Christ that come here to gather in order to examine our hearts, and in order to understand where we are at, and how much are we giving into the enemy, and how much we are actually entering deeper into the ocean of God. And this is really the challenge. Now, we humanly will not be able to really know how deep in are we really in God. But we will really know very fast how deep in we are in the devil. That we will know. So, because you see, the light is something we have to walk into, though we were created by the light, because the light is God himself. So we were created within the light because we are children of the light. We come from the light. But we have to journey through darkness, which is the exile. And then appears to be a contradiction. We come from the light, we are children of the light, but we have to walk through this exile of darkness in order to make it to the light. Sounds contradictory. If you reason into that, you never make it. But the truth is, it's almost as if we were thrown into a tunnel from the light. And we have to go through that tunnel to emerge into the light, back into the light, if we are following the tracks of Jesus. Otherwise, we never make it out again. That is the flesh. That tunnel will be the equivalent to the flesh, the mortal flesh. Because we did have a flesh that wasn't mortal. But we did get a mortal flesh because of original sin, and you know the story. So now, if we understand our journey, then we know that going into that tunnel, which is the flesh, which is darkness. You probably read some of these after death experiences, people that die for a moment clinically in a hospital, and lots of stories about that. They all talk about a tunnel. They were going through a tunnel that was dark, and then they could see light at the end. Some of them made it to the end of the tunnel and saw relatives, and so many stories like that. So basically, that tunnel is your own body, the flesh, and it is this world. It is dark, and that's the way you're going to go through when you die. You go out of the darkness into the light. You see, these people that are almost dying, they see light, and they have the idea that if they would have died, they would have ended up in the light, but that is wrong. The fact that they were seeing the light, that doesn't mean they were going to stay in the light. All depends on the state of the soul, because we will all be facing the light at the end of this life once we come out of this body. Instantaneously, we will be facing the light. There is a passage of St. Paul that explains it really well. St. Paul says, our works will be tested in the fire of God. So depending on the materials you used to build your work, that's how you're going to sustain that fire of God at that moment. Some people will have built their works in very fragile materials like wood or hay, I don't know what. And some people will have built their works in precious stones and gold and silver, and they will sustain the fire of God, this is speaking in spiritual terms, obviously. So now, we will all be facing that light at the end of this tunnel, yes. But will we remain in the light? Will we be able to stay in the light? All depends on what we did with the works of this life. How prepared are we? How good of a material we used in order to stay in the presence of that light, which is the fullness of the spiritual light within God. And that is the presence of God himself. That is what we're going to be confronted with instantaneously when the soul comes out of this body. So Lent is an incredible opportunity that God gives us. As Catholics, we have to understand that the liturgical seasons are a mystical journey. God gave us the church as an oasis. It's like our exile on earth. It's the opportunity to bring ourselves in order to feed and strengthen our eternal sense of living, which is the only real thing in life for us. Imagine this. If we don't understand that what we are really about is about continue on living after this life, then we are really missing it. The whole point we are missing. Because this is all about continuation. A lot of people are living for today, living only for this earthly life, for this time. And okay, they enjoy this earthly life, and that's all they have. And they are very successful at doing that. And a lot of people get to really enjoy this temporary life. And that's all they do. And you can see them happily roaming around the earth. And they sometimes own great part of the earth. But is about continuing on living. It's about eternal life. So when we understand what God has given to us, the faith we have inherited, then if we read through the lines of this inheritance, we understand that God is actually teaching us that we are not going to die if we really believe in Jesus and we follow what Jesus gave us and imitate him and walk on his tracks. And this is an old sermon. We hear this all the time. From the pulpit, every catechism speaks about that. Every word that we read in the scriptures is leading us into the same. But why? Is a lot being said, but it's only one thing happening. And it is eternal salvation, salvation of souls. That is all it is. So why are we here? We are here because we care about the salvation of our soul. That's why we are here. Some people may be here for other reasons, I don't know. But usually a Catholic that will come and do something like this, come to a retreat, is a Catholic that is aiming a little further into God than a regular person that is not interested in spiritual growth or knowing a little more about God or sharing with one another the faith and the work that God is doing through each one of us. See, the love of God manifests itself through us. So the only way we get to know more of God is if we get to know more of each other. How we will get to know God more if we don't open our hearts to know each other. People are very good at arguments. You find people and they are like institutions. So they will come with a great argument for everything. Why? Because they are not sharing. They are just presenting their goods and their ways of thinking. They are not sharing. So that's why St. Paul says, do not get involved in arguments. Do not go with arguments. Just go with love and compassion and forgiveness. And this is what Lent is teaching us, reconciliation. We are to reconcile with each other in order to reconcile with God. Because the Word says, the Word of God, do not come to the Lord if you have anything pending with your brother. Leave your offer at the foot of the altar and run to your brother to make peace with him before you come to the Lord. So that means that if we are here today, gathered as we are doing the first step really well, which is to reconcile with each other. Why do I say that? When we probably think we don't have anything against each other and no pending matters among us. But what happens is, when you give a chance to people, regardless of who they are, even people you don't know, some of us probably don't know each other here and probably haven't seen each other before and probably will not see each other again. But the matter is that once we get together like we are today and we open up to accept each other just like we are opening a realm of reparation because we are opening our hearts to humanity, to the human family. And believe me, it works mystically. That means God is opening you up into forgiveness because you are able to open further into people, further into loving people regardless, unconditionally. And that is the way to reconcile with God, to be able to acknowledge each other, acknowledge people around you, and to be able to care for them by not fighting. See, you are there unconditionally. You're not fighting your presence. It's very easy to establish yourself on yourself without knowing much about it because you may think you are good. You may think you are very religious. You may think you are even spiritual. But what you don't know is you are probably so closed in, so locked in with self that all you want to do is to prove yourself. See, and this is a sign that you're not open to anybody's heart. So Lent is about opening up. That's what Lent is about. It's a desert of conversion. Conversion. What is Jesus doing in the desert? He went out to open up completely to the whole human family he was going to rescue. That's why he went out there for 40 days, didn't eat, didn't drink anything, and here is the biggest thing that happened there. What I'm going to share with you now about Jesus in the desert is the essence of this reflection, and is probably the most perfect treaty of demonology of our faith. There's no better demonology than the 3 temptations of the desert. If you learn about these 3 temptations, you will learn demonology, which means you will learn how the devil operates against us. Jesus taught us just by talking to the devil in the desert. He taught us all about Satan, everything. If you learn about these 3 temptations, you will know who the devil is and what is he doing, what is he up to, and what is the relationship between him and you. You will know. So Jesus is out there for 40 days. For one thing, we know that 40 is a number that is sacred. You know about the 40 days that comes through the scriptures, and also 40 years. And it's the number 40. And that number mysteriously involves an incredible journey. It's a journey of fasting, it's a journey of chastisement, it's a journey of reaching out for God's promises. 40 years in the desert for the people of God. And let's take the 40 years in the desert from the people of God. The people of God journeyed through the desert for 40 years. Those 40 years were 40 years of conversion. Why? Though they were the people of God, you know what happened to them. They initially went, Joseph was the first one that went to Egypt, not on his own will. He was sold by his brothers. And then the famine came, and his brothers needed food, and his father sent them to look for food, end up with Joseph in Egypt. And after that, many Jews came to Egypt and began living in Egypt, and they multiplied. There were hundreds and hundreds of them. And initially the Pharaoh was in favor of the Jews, and then later on another Pharaoh came up and didn't like the Jews. He was jealous of them because they were too many, they were too bright, and they were afraid of them. So they began persecuting them. And that's when God heard the cry of his people and then got them out of Egypt using Moses. So these 40 years were 40 years of conversion for the people of God, the preparation for the incarnation of Jesus. God is preparing his people and separating them from everybody else. In order for that people to be prepared, because from that flesh of the Jews, God was going to take in order to send his son to us. See, that flesh of the Jews originally came from Abraham. And you know, Abraham was a pagan. So Abraham was just one of many, and he was no different than anybody. Only that he was born to be Abraham anyways, but his flesh was a common flesh, the flesh of a pagan. And every single Jew came out of Abraham after that. Now, God had to purify their flesh in order to prepare it, to take that flesh and bring the Messiah into that flesh. Now we know, in other words, that the preparation of the flesh, the name of the preparation of the flesh is Mary. That's how Mary comes about. What is Mary? Mary is the result of the preparation of a whole people that was purified by God through the most incredible chastisements and teachings, and it's incredible what God did with his people, the pedagogy. If you read the scriptures in the Old Testament and see the journey of the people of God, you say, wow, what was God up to? I mean, he was so incredibly rough with these people. In one day, 23,000 died because of fornicating. One day, 23,000 die in an instant. And some, in a day, I don't know how many thousands die from snake bites. And so on and so on. The punishments were incredible. He was lining them up. He was really teaching them. He was really making sure he was going to have a people that was going to be prepared for the Messiah. But those people and their journey made it possible for God to purify the flesh to the point that all of those sacrifices, all of those martyrs, so to call, they made it possible for Our Lady to be conceived without sin, and for us to get the new Eve. And it's the sacrifice of many, it's the work of many. It wasn't just like God said, I'm going to create a perfect woman, and I'm going to get my son to be born through her. It's not only that. It is the work of humanity. God took out all of this blood for all of these people that die, that he was preparing in order to clean it up and perfect it and bring Our Lady. And this is something very important for us to understand in Lent. This purification that God is calling us to acquire during Lent is the acknowledgement of where we come from, our roots. It's very important to know our roots, to know where we come from, because the foundation of our faith is the roots of our faith. And the roots of our faith is sacred history. It's not about learning history. It's about living history. It's something very different. You know, a lot of people learn how to pray the rosary. A lot of people learn how to go to Mass and to go through the steps of the liturgy. That doesn't mean they are living the rosary or living the liturgy while in Mass. It's a different thing. So, sacred history is not something to read. Sacred history is something to live. And in order to live sacred history, we have to be doing what we are doing now. This is a way of living it. Because you could read everything I'm talking about it. Yeah, you probably could. Because all of this is probably written somewhere. Most of it anyways. So, but will it make sense that you are only acquiring an intellectual vision of your faith? A lot of people read a lot. We have a lot of theologians. Lots of theologians. Very few spiritual people. And the reason is theology alone is not going to teach you anything. Or you can sit, sometimes I sit to talk to people, they are so articulate, so structured, and they are able to express themselves so well. And you are impressed, very impressed, but not touched. See? People can impress you, and you say, how bright, how intelligent, how articulate, how precise, but how cold. See, there's nothing there. Wind, only wind, words. There's nothing else. It's not about being elegant, distinguished, articulate, structured, and being able to express yourself. That is a very superficial side of life. It's about being a heart. A heart. And the heart only comes from Christ. Because if we don't place our heart in the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary, we will never know love, and we will never be able to reconciliation. And if we don't have the sense of reconciliation, we don't have the sense of conversion. And if we don't have the sense of conversion, we will never walk through the desert of Lent. Because Lent is about changing, it's about reconciling, about acknowledging where we are at. What are we up to? What are we doing with our lives, really? What is it that we are doing? And this is Lent. Lent is a great opportunity. Another thing that is important, there is something mystical about Lent, as it is in every season of the liturgy. And it is the Church gives us an extraordinary gift during these 40 days. Why? You think it's an accident that we have within our Christian journey in the Church these 40 days of Lent? It's not an accident. It's a journey. We are traveling through time with God. It's a journey. So we are not in the same spot as where we were last Lent. Oh no, we are not in the same spot. We are in a different spot. So we need a different dosage. Now we need a different fuel at this moment. We need a different dimension in order to face what we are facing right now. You cannot use the same thing you used last Lent. I'm not talking about the Spirit of God, because the Spirit of God will be the only essence that you will use all the time. But I'm talking about the strategy. I'm talking about how to go about things. It's like you are an engineer. But the fact that you are an engineer doesn't mean that what you used to build a bridge 2 years ago, you're going to use it to build this new bridge. No, you have to study the soil, the conditions of the place where you're going to build, and you have to come up with a whole new formula. Though you are an engineer that have your own engineering capacities and skills, but every time, every bridge, every work you do is conditioned to a whole new set of rules. And this is what happens with this Lent. This is a new Lent, and therefore do not compare it with a Lent ago. This is a new Lent, and this is where we are today. What you were thinking last Lent has nothing to do with today. So let's feel in our hearts that this is all new. This is all new. And we have to pick it up from there. The Holy Spirit will make everything new for those that renew themselves in Him every day, acknowledging God as the one that creates everything new every time. See, God is the eternal creator, and He is constantly, eternally creating. He does that. So we are recreated every instant, to the point where if you could scientifically examine yourself, you will find out that not even your body is in the same condition a minute later. It's constantly changing and moving, and things are constantly moving. The atmosphere, everything, all creation is constantly moving. So we are not the same we were a second ago. It is changing, it is moving. One thing is for sure, and it is the gift of faith. The only thing that keeps us in one place is the Spirit. If we are in the Spirit of God, we are going to be located specifically in one spot, which is God Himself. That's why if God is not in us, we are not. As simple as that. So Lent is about bringing God into our hearts and letting God really examine us, because we are not able to examine ourselves. Oneself can never be examined just on your own. We have to acknowledge that God is the only one that can give us the light to really go deep inside and find out what we got in there. See, the gift of faith is about this sincerity, this simplicity, humility, humbleness that will let us really face the music and find out who we are. What is the best thing you can do during this Lent? Well, if you read the fathers of the church, if you read all the incredible gifts of sainthood in the church, all the saints, they will all agree that the best thing you can ever do is to really find out who you are. Who you are in relationship with God and neighbor. Those are the only two things you have to know. Because those are practically the two commandments Jesus gave us, summarizing the whole Decalogue in two. He says, love God and love neighbor as yourself. And those two things. And how do you do that? Well, now you have to acknowledge yourself as to the relationship you have with your neighbor. See, everything you do has to have charity. You have to be a caring human being. Everything you do, even walking in the streets, has to have charity. Otherwise, you're never caring for your neighbor. A lot of people do a lot of things for people, but they're being paid for. See? It's a job. So they do a good job, but that doesn't mean they are good. That doesn't mean it comes from their hearts. Sometimes you go and see incredible people serving you. Anywhere you go, a restaurant, a shop, anywhere you go, where people are serving people, and you see these very kind, giving people. But can you read their hearts? You cannot. You don't know what they have in their hearts. A lot of people are very professional. They are very good at what they do. Are they doing it with love? Only God knows. But this gathering of Lent is for us to unmask ourselves. Because I cannot unmask you. You can fool me 24 hours a day. You're able to do it. and get away with it for life. Wife is able to fool husband and husband to fool wife all life long. See, because we are so astute, we are so mischievous, we are so bright in order to hide what we are. That is incredible the way we do it. We are above above animals, any animals. There are animals that are very, very fast in doing things, but nothing like a rational animal like us. We are the incredible, brightest ever beings that you can probably imagine. Obviously not compared to angels, but as far as human beings and earthly people, we are the most incredibly bright. So don't trust that brightness. See, the biggest mistake we make is we are very proud of how bright we are. And a lot of people polish that brightness and become very, very much brighter. So, and they feel a lot of pride of that brightness. And little do they know that that brightness is the biggest mistake. Because it's not about becoming brighter. It's about becoming better with love with God. That's what it is. It's not, you see, the devil is the brightest one of all. Satan, the brightest one of all, the sharpest one, the most structured one. People think the devil shows up with sulfur and fire and tails and horns. Oh no, the devil doesn't show up like that. That's why God calls him the prince, Jesus calls him the prince of this world. He's a prince. He comes in as the most good-looking one. Oh, the smoothest one, smooth as silk. And he will seduce you. The devil is a seducer. That's what the devil is. So the world will shape you up and will teach you how to be a seducer, how to be smooth, how to do things right, how to deliver. This is business, right? That's how we shape each other in the world. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. See, a good salesman is a good seducer. See, most people get married because they seduce each other. That's why so many marriages go down. See, they break because they were seduced. They seduced each other. They didn't love each other. They seduced each other. And then we become seducers. And the world is a seduction. And people buy and sell through the seduction. And people sell ideas through being seductive. And so we have to stop it and realize that it's not about seducing, it's about loving. True loving. And that love only comes from God. That's why I say always, this is an old sermon. Because how many times are we going to pronounce the word God, repentance, forgiveness, and sin, and Satan, and all of this is constantly going on. It's like so many words that constantly are popping up in our journey. And what do we do with that? And it's repeating itself, and it's coming back and forth, and we don't seem to get away from there. That's why all this new age type of Christianity today is so popular, because it's very dynamic and different. You see, if you see a priest that comes up with a new system, a new technique of praying the rosary, a new technique of kneeling, a new technique of meditating, oh, they are all there. Everybody's there. Because it's breaking the monotony of the faith. It's breaking all this bored type of meditation and contemplation and adoration to the Blessed Sacrament and being silent in Mass. It's breaking all that away. It's about changing it. It's about coming up with new formulas and ideas. That's why all these Oriental techniques creep in into Christianity, and all this New Age type of stuff comes in, and priests and laity become very popular and powerful because they're using all of this. All these weird type of new alternatives of the faith. When in reality, what is lacking from everybody is that being plainly simple. Plainly. Some go to the stream. Now we have the stream right in the church. I always say there are two things that are wrong. Stream right, stream left. Because that's not Christ-centered. See, we are to be Christ-centered. We are not left or right. It's like St. Paul says, we don't belong to Apollo or to Paul. We belong to Christ. So we don't belong to the left or the right. We belong to Christ. So we have Catholics that are so holy and reverent that they hate everybody else that is not. Yes. Oh, you see, I see some people going into the church, they sweat in holy water, right? Oh, yes. The way they walk, the way they sit, the way they kneel, the way they receive the Eucharist, the way they walk everywhere. Even the priests that are doing that. And then, holy as thou, right? Now, you check their hearts. Most of those people are so unkind, they don't even greet you. They don't even say hello to you. That's how unkind they are. Most of those people, so stiff. And then we see the liberals, the left. They are so relaxed. See, they are completely gone to the other side. Those two should live together, right? They probably kill each other because they're so opposite. They probably kill each other. But I think both of those sides are absolutely a mess. They are wrong. Both of them are wrong. As a matter of fact, they are scandalous. They are disgusting, in other words, because I think God completely despises that. Imagine Jesus seeing those people. Can you imagine what he's going to tell them if he sees those ultra-reverent people and then the ultra-liberals? He's going to get the two of them and say, here, this is what he's going to do. Like what he did in the temple with the merchants and what he did with the Pharisees, right? Because those were the Pharisees, and the merchants were probably the extreme left. But now, what we do is understanding Christ-centeredness. We have to understand the center of Christ. The center of Christ is this understanding of how fragile, how vulnerable we are as human beings, and how much compassion we owe to each other. This is the key. How much compassion we need to each other. We are not to judge each other. We are not to point fingers at anybody. We are not to persecute anyone. We are not to go after anything but our conversion, our true change of the heart. That's what we need to aim for. We need to aim for a change of the heart. If you're not doing that, you're dead. You're dead. I don't care how bright you are. You're dead. You're nothing. And you're not doing anything, and your religion is a scandal because you're mistreating it. You're not doing anything with it. So Lent is that. Lent is the opportunity, the great opportunity for God to really make a difference in our lives. You see, God only wants to come in and do what he has to do. And mold us the way he wants to shape us up. If we let him. And it's hard to let that happen. Because the potter, when he grabs the clay, he's going to twist it and turn it and shake it. But he's going to shape it. And this is what we need to understand. Even though it hurts, even though it's going to be difficult, rough, but it's going to be a reason there. The reason is God is shaping us. And we have to let it. What is the hardest part you have in your life right now? Most of it is letting go and being obedient. See, obedience begins by obeying everyone. You notice how St. Peter says, if they ask you for your cape, give them. If you ask you for whatever, give them the cape too. See, if they ask you for your shirt, give them the cape. Meaning, if they ask you to go 1 block, go a mile with them. See, what the apostle is teaching us is that we have to go an extra mile with everything. You have to give. You have to give always and give a lot. You know how obedience begins? Obedience begins by the way you treat everything in your life. Obedience begins by the way you behave in the street. We were standing in the street this morning, and someone walked out of a place where we were and had a broken umbrella, and then looked at the umbrella like this and threw it on the floor like that and walked away. And we couldn't judge that person. I don't know who that person was, but just the action of that was not exactly in harmony, right? It was like off. So why? Because it was uncharitable. Someone has to pick it up, right? It's not going to stay there. Someone has to pick it up for him. So when he could have gone to a bin, and throw it there, someone has to pick it up. So that action alone shows you're not obedient. you're not obedient. And this is not being scrupulous. This is being meticulous. You know the difference between extreme right and Christ-centeredness? The extreme right is scrupulous, and Christ-centeredness is meticulous. That's a big difference. So what would have been the right action with that umbrella that was broken, and he couldn't use it anymore? To just find a bin and throw it in there, right? That's the right action. That's not being scrupulous. That is being meticulous. And if we learn to obey that, those little things, then we can climb up into the big things. You have to start from the little ones. A lot of people are very good at a lot of things. But if you really look at around their little life is a mess. Everything is out of place in their little life. See, they don't know how to put things together in the little ways. And that is a bad sign. Because that means you are putting things very well only where it's profitable to you, where it is important. The rest, you're not paying attention to because it's not important. That means you're not obeying to everything. You're only partially obeying. That means you are a mess. That means you don't have integrity. You're not integrated into a spiritual growth. You are integrated only into growing into your own convenience. You are only doing what is convenient. That's it. Even using your religion for that. So it's convenient to pray very hard because I'm in trouble. I need to get things straightened. So I pray very hard on my knees 24 hours a day. Things are okay? Oh, I am not on my knees any longer. Right? I am again who I was before the prayers. Right? So, and this is what happens in our lives very often. And that's what God goes like, ooh, I think this time is going to be a little harder. Right? And see if we're going to kneel and keep on being knelt after it, after things are okay. Because this is the teaching. This is where we have to lead. That's why this is Lent. Very important. But let it not be the same Lent. Let it be a new Lent. Because it's not the same Lent. See, and don't forget, it's not the same Holy Week. It's not the same 40 days either. It's not the same experience of God. It's completely new. Do you think God just becomes old? No, God doesn't become old. God is an eternal freshness, an eternal youth. Is always forever new. And that's why this Lent is not the same. It's not the same Lent. And God is speaking to you in a whole new way. Because you are in a whole new spot right now. You're not the same person that you were when you woke up this morning. By the time you got here, you're a different person. Not a different personality and not a different character, but a different spiritual person because you are on a journey. You're not in the same spot. Your heart is moving, palpitating in a direction like an engine that is leading you, taking you on a journey. And that's why you can never say, you see, when you have relationships with people, you have to always give them a chance. Why? Because we are always moving. And then things can change. Sometimes it seems like nothing is changing. But if you have love, things can change. For sure they can change. And if they don't change while you are here, they will change when you're gone. That is one of the toughest things to learn. It's like my mother had a cousin. And they had big problems between the two of them. And the problems they had was because my cousin was a very simple, uneducated, humble person, and was the one that came up with the most incredible lines. She was a one-liner type of person. The most incredible lines for my mother. My mother said, "When will he convert?" Talking about me. And there was nothing happening in my life that will give a sign that will ever come back into God. I was getting more and more lost every day, so straight. And then this cousin was said, "Well, I'm sure he's gonna change when you die." It was so prophetic. That was exactly what happened. A year after she died was when it happened. But you see, the matter was conversion. Conversion is an eternal acquirement. You acquire conversion for what? For eternity. So is it important to see the results of your intercession for the conversion of others and see it during this earthly life? No, it's not important. The important thing is that that particular soul you are interceding for is going to make it. That is what matters. So even if your prayers are not showing, even if you see no results, the most important thing is that that soul makes it. That's it. So don't be focused on conversions and to see them and to touch them during this time. No. The most important part is that that soul is going to make it. That's why preaching. It's like when I started this ministry, I began to travel, and I noticed that a lot of people were concerned when I came that not many people were going to show up. And people that bring you into a country and into a venue, so they always tell you, I don't know how many are coming. We did everything we could. You know, we put posters in every church. We went everywhere. I hear that everywhere, and I go, don't worry about it. He said, it's not about numbers. Even if one comes in, we have the same sermon going on all the time, right? The truth is, it doesn't matter. See, I have never been worried or concerned about numbers and crowds. And this is the way I have experienced my apostolate. It's like you go, and I have the same passion if one person shows up. I'm not there all frustrated thinking, what is wrong? No, because it's not about me. It's not about me. I didn't come here to preach myself and to do things for me. I came here because the Lord wants it, and you came here because the Lord brought you here. So we are here because He wants to. And then if we acknowledge that, that is enough. If 100 people are here, 50, 20, it doesn't matter. What matters is that it's taking place. Even if nobody shows up, you still have to be there, pray in a rosary, and leave when the time is up. And I've done that once or twice. But the same thing that I have been to a place where 10 people showed up, and I was very happy there preaching to those 10 people. And a month later, I was preaching to 30, 40,000 people in a stadium somewhere. So I say, what is the difference? You know, it's not about stadiums or 10 people or one person. It's about doing the job. It's about being there. It's about going for what you had to do. That's it. It's not about anything else. As long as you do that, then you are walking with Christ. This is the calling we have. That's when you pray, don't worry about the results of your prayers. Just pray. Pray. Pray with a lot of faith. And then let God. He's going to take care of that. He's going to do, there's no prayer that is not going to reach God. The only prayer that is not going to reach God are prayers that have no heart. Those don't never reach God. And which are the prayers that have no heart? Those are the prayers that you do without love. And when don't you have love in your heart? When you are all about self-love. Meaning you praying only because you want something. But you don't care to think if what you want is right. If what you want is in line with God. If what you want is for everybody's good. See, if you don't have that going like that, that prayer doesn't even exist. It doesn't make it anywhere. So we have to understand that God is teaching us how to really walk with this reality of Lent. And the reality of Lent is called an opportunity. I didn't speak much of the devil, though I mentioned him. But you know, one thing is for sure. The three temptations, to close this, my time is up. You see, Jesus speaks about being tempted in the desert. Because I'm sure Jesus was the one that told the apostles. Nobody else was there with him. So what I'm going to do in the next talk is I'm going to speak about these three temptations and how they work and what we have to do with it so that we can dedicate the right time for this very important journey of Jesus' temptations. Amen. Thank you.
Amen.